Morning, everyone. Welcome. It's great to see you all. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Manhattan. Unitarian Universalism strives to embrace and include all in a loving and caring community as we try to create a world that is diverse, hospitable, joyous, and just. Wherever you have come from, whoever you are, whoever you love, whatever your journey has been, it has led you here, and we're glad to have you. This month, we passed a searing milestone. More than 500,000 Americans have died of COVID-19, and 1 year ago, our lives were turned upside down. All of us have been affected. We've lost loved ones, we have become ill, we have lived with a veil of caution for far too long. We've not been able to greet each other as we entered the doors on Sunday morning at the fellowship. We've not been able to feel the delight of the children as they listen to the story for all ages. We've not been able to visit over coffee, work on a jigsaw puzzle, discuss a book, serve the community through Happy Kitchen. Nevertheless, we have persisted and people have found us. We've welcomed new members, we've greeted new children, and we have sustained each other through our commitment to each other. I ask you to join us today with an open heart and an open mind, and I greet you with the same. If you're visiting with us today and exploring our beliefs, I ask that you go to our website, UUFM.net, and click Connect in the upper right corner to receive our emails. If you'd like to talk with someone directly during our service or about our service, look for Shirley or Bryce in the chat. And now I'd like to welcome Sarah Desmet, who's going to read our opening words, This Promise That We Made by Reverend Gretchen Haley.
It starts here, in this moment, in this breath. In this breath you feel rising in your chest, this beat building between us, the healing, the hunger, the hope, the courage, the calling, the commitment, the drawing out of a new day in the imagination. In this story we weave together, this song we sing, this prayer we bring into being, from our hearts to our lips, from our hands to our life, our shared life. It starts here with praise and thanksgiving, forgiveness, and this humble, centering confession that we could be wrong. This promise that we make to keep learning, to keep trying, to keep our sense of humor, to keep close this knowing that we are all in this together. Come, let us begin. Come, let us worship together.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down. No, we won't back down.
As we renew our commitment to each other and to our faith, we light our chalice each week. Today we'll read the words of Reverend Suzelle Lynch. Each time we light the chalice, we renew our commitment to the Unitarian Universalist faith. With the spark of a match, we make it new again, as fresh and surprising as the first day we encountered this spiritual community and realized that we were home. I'd like to remind everyone to post your joys and concerns in the chat, and please indicate if you'd rather not be identified with your joy or concern for the recording.
I'd like to invite you now into breakout rooms to greet one another. This is your community. Whoever is in the room is part of your community. Welcome them.
Oh, I have to get some water.
Well, that was fun having a very large group here. We're now going to move to our story for all ages. Today we're going to hear a story called The Cockerel, the Duck, and the Mermaids by Pedro Pablo Sacristan. And it's a little story about conquering your fears and moving forward to follow your commitment and find your goal.
The Cockerel, the Duck, and the Mermaids by Pedro Pablo Sacristan. A cockerel and a duck were arguing.
I say mermaids exist. I say mermaids don't exist.
Our Helping Hands recipient this month is the Wonder Workshop Children's Museum. All donations not marked for UUFM will go to the Helping Hands beneficiary. You can use the donate button at the UUFM homepage to make your donation, and please be sure that you do indicate where you would like your offering to go. It has been humbling to witness the commitment that so many have made throughout this challenging year to the Wonder Workshop and to the Food Blessing Box and the little library that we support located in their by their front porch. Doug visits daily. There are many among us who stop by to restock, clean out, deal with vandalism with no formal recognition. But you are recognized and you are appreciated. So thank you all who participate in this wonderful activity. The offering is a sign and a symbol of our uniting together. Because we offer to this fellowship our time, treasure, and talent, we are able to do more together than we ever could do alone. In that spirit, we now receive our offering. And Renee is going to play a lovely song, Fire, by Brian Crane. Beautiful.
So much thanks to Renee. She does a beautiful job. As Susan reminded us this morning, we've had quite a year. Our hearts go out to all those affected in whatever way, in health, in their economic situation, in their family situation, in their social situation. We grieve together. And at the same time, we hope together for what is to come. And some of our joys this morning relate directly to that hope. Sarah Desmet reports that she has a vaccine appointment on the 17th. And Tom Phillips notes that Happy Kitchen will start up soon with boxed breakfast given out at the door. But he also has a concern or maybe a request. He hopes that this will be safe for all. And of course, he welcomes anyone who'd like to help serve that breakfast meal on Fridays in Manhattan. Dick Beeman has another joy that Bill Showers, his friend, has been Zooming into UUFM from California, and Judy Nicholson, and so many of us are so thankful for the rain. We've needed it. And so we hold these joys and concerns in our hearts, and those that remain unspoken, we hold you too, even though you haven't said them out loud. And now we have a reading from Susan.
As you're aware, this month we're exploring the concept of commitment. Unitarian Universalist minister Dennis McCarty spoke of covenant, of commitment, in an article published in the UU World in 2008 titled The Tiger and the Lamb. In his essay, he referenced UU theologian James Luther Adams, who contrasted the cage of coercive church and state and the covenant or commitment made with government by the consent and will of those governed. McCarty wrote, Adams emphasized 5 important points about covenants. First, human beings are at our best when we make solemn promises to one another and try hard to keep them. We are promise-making, promise-keeping, promise-breaking, promise-renewing creatures. Our very humanity lies in the way that we carry out our promises to our families, our co-workers, our neighbors, and our fellow members of the human family. His second point is that to be genuine, a covenant must be a covenant of being. It's not just about good words, but it's about action. Adam's third point was that covenant exists for the sake of each individual as well as for the whole group. Covenant is both a gift and a responsibility. The individual is brought into just relationship with the rest of the group, but each individual is also responsible for what the whole group does. If what my church or my nation does is wrong, I share in that responsibility. It's not enough to just say, I didn't know what was going on, or there's nothing I can do about it. My covenantal duty is to be informed on what is happening and to act on that information. Fourth, Adam says, the covenantal responsibility is especially directed to the deprived. Covenantal living demands that we pay attention to those who suffer from society's neglect or injustice, and that we do something about it. Finally, Adams makes the point that the covenant is not fundamentally a legal covenant. It depends on faithfulness, and faithfulness is nerved by loyalty and by love. Violation of covenant is serious, not because it breaks a law, but because it's a violation of trust. It's a breach of faith. McCarty concludes, we make promises to one another. We do the best we can. Even to make a serious promise is a real expression of faith, not only in the person that we promise to, but also that the future is worth saving, that at its best, the future can and will be better than the past because of our promises. To make a promise calls forth the best in us, but we are human and we make mistakes. Promises get broken, so we try again. Covenanted faith does not ask us to be perfect. It asks us to look at our own mistakes and our shortcomings and to try earnestly to correct them. And now Rev Jonalu will share some thoughts on temptation, what keeps us from following our commitments.
Thanks, Susan. Susan has introduced us to some key concepts about covenants, about the promises that we make to one another. 20th century UU theologian James Luther Adams' constructs are sometimes called the 5 smooth stones of liberal religion. I'd like to draw your attention to that final one. Faithfulness is nerved by loyalty, by love, to maintain our commitments. It helps to be in love with them, to fully embrace them. Let me share a covenant written by UU minister Rebecca Parker. Let us covenant with one another to keep faith with the source of life, knowing that we are not our own. Earth made us. Let us covenant with one another to keep faith with the community of resistance, never to forget that life can be saved from that which threatens it by even small bands of people choosing to put into practice an alternative way of life. And let us covenant with one another to seek an ever deeper awareness of that which springs up inwardly in us. Even when our hearts are broken by our own failure or the failure of others cutting into our lives, even when we have done all we can and life is still broken, there is a universal love that has never broken faith with us and never will. This is the ground of our hope and the reason we can be bold in seeking to fulfill the promise. Importantly, Parker includes in her words the acknowledgement that there will be failures. We will fail. Others will fail us. And when there are, we remember the hope of universal love. That's what allows us to move on to fix those mistakes that have been made. Love crops up just as it did in James Luther Adams' 5 Smooth Stones. We make commitments out of love. And when we commit to someone or something, we often fall more deeply in love with them or it. We keep commitments out of love. I knew a couple married for more than 5 decades who recommitted to one another every day they woke up together. They took the time and effort to remind themselves why they said I do in the first place and reminded themselves of all the reasons they discovered since then through the years that they would do it all over again. I've observed myself and my own commitment in a novel way over the last few weeks. Having a minor shoulder injury, the doctor sent me to PT twice a week, and the physical therapist gave me assignments of home exercises 3 times a day and icing twice a day. The exercises take 25 or 30 minutes and the icing takes 20 minutes, and add all that together, and I'm looking at about 2 hours a day devoted to this shoulder. So that's a commitment that requires other commitments to go out the window. But I am striving to be in love with my aging body, so I was up for it. At first, it wasn't too hard to get in the extra time. I was learning the exercises, which was interesting. I was creative about finding ways to time myself with my phone and make up a lovely little chart that I could check everything off as I did it. And I saw some pretty immediate improvement. I could move in ways I hadn't been able to. I could get dressed without much pain. Then a couple of weeks into it, it got boring and harder to do. I wasn't seeing the immediate improvement anymore. I thought it might even be hurting more again. I was discouraged. Is this commitment really paying off? My PT says it is, and I know this probably won't be forever, so I'm persevering. We'll see. So goes life. Each commitment we make, big or small, adds more hours until our time is stretched thin. It can get to where squeezing in a 10-minute conversation can feel like an imposition. Commitments we made can feel old as we lose our sense of purpose, as they don't seem to be getting us where we thought they would. Sometimes we simply have too many commitments and something has to give. This has been a predicament of mine all my life. When I was 10, my mother sat me down and said, You have to quit something. It was Girl Scouts that lost out that time. Every time I feel myself in over my head, that interaction comes back to me, and I tell myself, you have to quit something. As delightful and wonderful and fulfilling as all the things of the world are, to pursue any one of them is to give up on many others. You've probably seen the old demonstration of the jar and the rocks. You have big ones, you have little ones. And if you put the most important ones, the big ones in first, then there's room for all the small ones and the gravel and the water. But if you let the little ones fill up the jar, then you can't fit in the big ones. It's a great image, and there's plenty of truth to it. The problem is that's not how life happens. Maybe the small commitments came first. Maybe we didn't know the big ones were there until later. And maybe some little tiny shiny thing came along and you said, ooh, it would be fun to make some art. That's just a little tiny commitment. But then it might have grown into a passion. It got bigger and bigger. And on the other hand, it might just recede and become tiny. So no, that's not really something I want to spend that much time and energy on. So it's not like the rocks stay the same, they change. And some commitments are really solid and big and overcome anything else. There are moments of clarity, as when a significant family member grows seriously ill or dies. We expect in those times to rearrange all our other commitments, to set them aside and focus on that single commitment, that love. And then we don't worry about all those other things. Despite the challenge of such a moment, we know exactly where we need to be and what we need to be doing, even if it is only sitting at a bedside. Most of the time, though, we're not focused in that way, and that's where the challenge lies. And of course, we don't all have the same approach to commitment. Some people are ready to jump on board and gladly carry through on every commitment they make, seemingly without struggle. There are not many of those people. Some hold back, unwilling to put themselves on the line until they are certain of everything that a commitment might entail. Some overcommit, some drift into commitments, some never manage to commit at all. Some drift out of commitments. And no one can really evaluate anyone else's level of commitment. One thing I've learned in churches is how there are some people who seem to be at the center of things, very connected, who can still express that they're doubtful about how committed they are. And while there are others who appear to be at the periphery, not involved, who can go on and on about their love and commitment. Some people show their commitment with showing up, some with active volunteering, some with money, some with inviting others to join in with them. And everyone is different. Maybe it's a form of different love languages. With all these approaches to commitment, it may be hard to generalize the reasons we shirk our commitments. As with different approaches, there's a whole array of reasons for not living up to commitments. Sometimes we make a commitment not knowing what it will entail. Really, though, can we ever fully know what we're committing to? My colleague, Teresa I. Soto, asserts, you could not know before right now what this moment would call for. And I think there's truth to that. What did you know when you chose your career or your spouse? Some of those commitments will remain strong no matter what. Others may be weakened as we learn more about what's expected. And sometimes, too, we change careers, change interests, change priorities. Certainly at different ages and stages of life, different passions predominate: family, work, justice. we can even discover that a commitment we made in good faith was all wrong for us. And sometimes something in the environment changes. The academic program you were so excited about hires different faculty and no longer feels like a fit. The job you love is phased out. Coronavirus happens. Life gets in the way. And sometimes we simply fail. Maybe we weren't as committed, as in love as we thought we were. Maybe the demands are too great. We got into it without realizing what it would require. And we also encounter temptation away from our core commitments. That's when some temporary desire eclipses our deeper purpose. When the person flirting with us appears more desirable than our committed spouse. When a drink sounds better than the AA meeting. When watching Bridgerton draws you away from the work you promised to complete. Temptation also wins when we step back from confronting that racist joke or fire off a withering retort, hurting someone we love. Temptation is present anytime that our knees weaken at the prospect of following along our declared values. UUs don't talk much about temptation. It's real though. It comes dangerously close to the idea of sin. Our positive ideas about human beings and our rebellion against Calvinism make concepts like sin and temptation feel old, rusty, and useless. They can ignite guilt. On the other hand, it can be helpful to remember that everyone is tempted and no one is perfect. When we fail, when we are tempted away from our goals, we simply need to reconsider. Do I really know what I want? Am I following the path to the best person I can be, to who I want to be? What needs to shift in my thinking, in my feelings, in my practices? Is there anything I need to do to make up for where I've gone wrong? We may simply need to recommit to our priorities, to remind ourselves that we're still in love with them. Conservative commentator David Brooks has said, most of life is choosing what you already chose. Just as all writing is rewriting and all commitment making is recommitment, our lives are stories of recommitment. Or we may need to make new commitments. Somehow, though, we have to find the time for reflection that allows us to know what path to take to enable true commitment to emerge once more and to make up to anyone who has been disappointed or hurt by our straying from our commitments. Yoga instructor Gia George talks about the need to align what we feel, what we think, and what we say. She talks about it as heart, mind, and voice. The mind approaches and examines our commitments and desires analytically. It weighs priorities. It can also give us strength to follow through. Civil rights activist Rosa Parks said, I've learned over the years when one's mind is made up, this diminishes fear. Knowing what must be done does away with fear. Thinking is not the only factor in our decisions, though. And often we need something more to completely eliminate fear. We need love. We need the heart to embrace our commitment. As human beings, we feel, we react emotionally. We are drawn to some things, people, and experience, and repelled by others. And finally, the voice is what we say, what we tell others about our priorities and commitments. Saying commitments out loud to ourselves and to others makes it more likely that we will keep them. I'd like to invite you into a time of meditation and reflection to consider your intentions, your commitments. So find a comfortable position you can maintain. You may want to stay where you're seated. You may want to lie down on a couch or on the floor or bed. If you're more comfortable with your camera off, feel free to turn it off. Notice your breathing. The in-breath and the out-breath. As you breathe, send that breath as deeply into your body as you can. All the way down to your legs. Breathing in a sense of peace. Breathing out any obstacles to being with yourself. Relax your shoulders, your neck. If you need to move a little to get things relaxed, do so. Breathe in and out. Stay anchored in your breath. Notice what you are feeling in your body. Release any tension into the floor under you. If you notice any pain, note it, but don't hold on to it. Let your thoughts and feelings simply flow through you, not holding on to any of them. Simply noticing and releasing, like leaves drifting along in a stream or clouds moving across the sky. I invite you to focus on your heart and notice your feelings. What does your heart long for? See if any words, images, or feelings come up when you consider your heart's intentions. You may encounter a variety of words, images, feelings. You may be drawn to focus on something specific. You may find nothing speaking to you at all. It's all okay. Sit with it and breathe into your heart's intentions. Slowly shift your attention to your mind, to your thoughts. What are your mind's intentions? See what words, images, or thoughts arise. Again, you may encounter a variety of words, images, thoughts. You may be drawn to something specific to focus on. Whatever you find, it's okay. Sit with it and breathe into your mind's intentions. Now widen your focus so you can notice the connection between mind and heart. Imagine the energy flowing freely between your heart and your mind through your throat. As you do that, let go of any fears or concerns. Consider the intentions arising from both mind and heart and see how they may harmonize. Do both heart and mind embrace something together? Does something new emerge? What does your heart feel about what's coming up? What does your mind think about it? Are there fears or worries or concerns you need to let go of in order to fully embrace your intentions, your commitments? Imagine speaking your intention, your commitment. What comes up? What do you feel? What do you think? Remember to breathe. Return your focus to your breath. What will you bring back with you from this meditation to enhance your life and commitments? Emerge from the meditation at your own pace. Breathe. Notice your feet, your hands, your body. Stretch if you feel the need and rejoin the service. I invite you now to join a small group to talk about your experience with commitments and intentions, your experience with this meditation or beyond that into your life. And if you prefer to remain in meditation, you can stay in this room. Just ignore the invitation to the breakout room. We'll have about 7 minutes in the breakout rooms. About 6 minutes, I think.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone. Our closing hymn is The Fire of Commitment, played by Renee.
When the fire of commitment sets when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous Troys. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
In closing, let us reflect on the words of American philosopher and theologian Henry Nelson Wyman, who said this about commitment. Inevitably, in our lives, we commit ourselves to something, whether worthy or not. The direction and intensity of our loyalties gives shape and meaning to our lives. Loyalties, commitments, covenants, the promises we make to one another. These are the things that tell us to what we belong. By doing so, they tell us who we are. Let us set out now to remember and reflect on the loyalties, commitments, covenants, and promises we've made to one another. I invite you all to stay a little bit longer and visit in the breakout rooms for our coffee and conversation. Please have a good week all. Be safe.
And I'd just add a welcome to the people who arrived who forgot that it's daylight savings time. But you can stay and visit with coffee or, yeah, for our coffeeless coffee.
That's right. We're glad you made it. You'll be able to visit.